Amir sat on his bed, staring at his phone. Notifications kept coming, but none of them mattered. Every day felt the same. Wake up, scroll some more, nap, scroll again. Amir had always dreamed of becoming a writer, but his dream seemed farther away with each passing day. He knew he had stories to tell, ideas that could inspire people, yet he kept scrolling. "I'll start tomorrow," he whispered to himself, a phrase he had repeated for months. Outside, the world moved forward. People created, learned, failed, and succeeded. But Amir stayed stuck, trapped in a cycle of distraction. One evening, he went to a cafe to clear his mind. While sipping his coffee, he overheard a conversation between two strangers. One spoke about finally completing a personal project, about the struggles it took, and how every wasted hour before that felt like regret. Amir felt a pang in his chest. How many hours had he wasted? How many stories remained unwritten? When he returned home, he grabbed his notebook and stared at a blank page. The silence of the room was loud. For the first time, he felt the weight of time pressing down on him. That night, he didn't write, but a spark had formed. Time, once gone, never returned. And tomorrow could not wait. The next morning, Amir's alarm rang, but he didn't reach for his phone. He lay on his bed, thinking about the cafe conversation from last night. Something inside him had shifted. Time was slipping, and he could no longer ignore it. He decided to make a small change. Instead of scrolling through social media, he opened his old notebook. The first sentences were awkward and hesitant, but they were real. Hours passed like minutes. He didn't check his phone, didn't answer messages, and didn't even notice when he got hungry. For the first time in months, Amir felt alive. Later that week, he met his old friend Daniel at the park. Daniel had just published his first book. Amir congratulated him, but couldn't hide his envy. "How did you do it?" he asked. Daniel smiled knowingly. "I stopped wasting time. Every day, I dedicated 2 hours to writing. No excuses. It wasn't easy, but time waits for no one. You either use it or lose it." Amir felt inspired, but also guilty. He realized he had spent years convincing himself that there would always be a later. That evening, he made a plan. He would reclaim his hours, one by one, until he built a life that mattered. The first week was harder than Amir expected. Old habits clung to him like shadows. Notifications buzzed constantly, tempting him to check them, and the lure of instant entertainment was strong. But he resisted. Every hour he spent writing felt like a small victory, of proof that he could take control of his life. He started waking up earlier, journaling his thoughts, and setting small goals each day. He noticed how much more energy he had, how ideas flowed faster when he wasn't distracted. Slowly, Amir began to see his own potential. Even his friends noticed the change. They saw a spark in his eyes that had been missing for years. One afternoon, while walking through the park, Amir realized something important. Life wasn't just about productivity. It was about respect for himself, for his dreams, and for the time he had been given. Each hour he reclaimed was a step toward becoming the person he wanted to be. With this realization, Amir began to structure his days carefully. He wrote in the morning, read in the afternoon, and reflected at night. Even small victories, finishing a paragraph, completing an outline, or finishing a chapter, felt monumental. He felt proud for the first time in a long while. Amir also learned to say no to distractions. Time with friends, scrolling apps, and meaningless entertainment were carefully balanced. His life was no longer about wasting time. It was about using it wisely. Slowly but surely, he felt himself changing, not just as a writer, but as a person. After months of consistent effort, Amir finally completed his first short story. It was raw and imperfect, but it existed. He sent it to a small magazine and waited nervously for a response. A week later, a rejection email arrived. For a moment, Amir felt defeated. But then he thought of all the hours he had invested, the time he could have wasted but didn't. He smiled. This wasn't failure. It was progress. He wrote again and again. Each story he completed made him more confident and disciplined. Writing became not just a hobby, but a habit, a part of his identity. The discipline he had built became his shield against procrastination and doubt. People began noticing his work. Friends praised his honesty and depth, and strangers reached out to say his stories inspired them. Amir realized something important. Success wasn't about one big event. It was the result of time spent wisely, every day, little by little. Even setbacks no longer discouraged him. Rejections became lessons, guiding him to improve. Every completed story, every hour spent focused, strengthened his resolve. He felt a growing sense of pride, not because of recognition, but because he had finally learned to value his own time. Amir understood that reclaiming time was the greatest gift he could give himself. And with every story, he was proving that dreams were achievable, one focused hour at a time. Years later, Amir stood at a small book launch event. The room was filled with people eager to hear his story. As he looked around, he felt a quiet pride. He had turned his life around not overnight, but 1 hour at a time. He shared his journey, from the days of endless scrolling, to the moment he realized that time was slipping away. He spoke about the struggles, the distractions, the setbacks, and the small victories that built his habit of focus. The audience listened intently, inspired by someone who had taken control of his own life. Time is the most precious gift you have, Amir said, looking around the room. Don't waste it scrolling through life. Start today, no matter how small the step. Dreams don't wait, and neither should you. His story became more than words on paper. It was a reminder, a lesson, and an inspiration. People left the event motivated to take their own steps toward their dreams, aware that every hour counted. Amir smiled, feeling the peace of someone who had finally learned to value time. He understood that life was fleeting, but the way he spent it could shape his future. And by choosing focus, discipline, and action, Amir had turned his wasted hours into a life of purpose. Proof that time, once wisely used, could change everything.